to those who feel that they are lost with their lives, especially when you're in mid-20s. How did you get back on track? I stopped being such a people pleaser and started doing things solely for myself. Gain some perspective. Take a step back from any social media that you're engrossed with. I'm not saying you are, but lots of us are so overly engaged with the media we consume it can become harmful to our own self-esteem. Focus on what you want to achieve in the short and medium term for yourself and appreciating the steps you take towards those goals. Focus on the short term. If this last year has taught us anything, it's that you can't plan too far ahead. Take a step back from comparing yourself with others. Are you actually lost? Or is it just that you're not doing what you see others doing? By realizing that not having the stereotypical dream job isn't everything, as another commenter said, I realized how the income I do get, even if it's not what I need, or in a field that I find terribly interesting, allows me to pursue hobbies and interests on the weekends or in free time. I also thought back 10 years ago to my teens and thought how worried I was then, and things worked out. I find that comforting that in another 10 years, it'll probably feel the same about doubts I have now. First, it's totally natural. Most people go through some sort of identity crisis in their mid-20s, and it was very uncomfortable for me. You thought you knew how everything was going to play out, and then you get to a point in your life that does not resemble what you were planning. That's okay. I was mostly concerned about my career, so I took a strength finders quiz that confirmed that I was in the right kind of job for me. So then it was finding my space in that area. I looked at what I was doing in my life and what was actually making me happy and excited and what was a chore. This proved very hard cause I found joy in few things. A few years later, I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression and ADHD. It also was surprising cause I always thought I wanted to manage people and be the ever salesperson, but turns out I don't enjoy most people and superficial relationships really bother me. So I pivoted toward what I do enjoy, and that caused me to get a new job. It also caused me to evaluate my relationship and living situation. Obviously, it took time for leases to end to get my own place without roomies. My relationship I really tried to salvage, and eventually it came to a breaking point. Though I'm single today, I'm much happier than I was then, and that's more important to me. Also, I make significantly more money cause it's a lot easier to work hard at something you like to do. TL. Doctor, it's okay. It happens to most people. Start evaluating what truly makes you happy, what you are good at, and start making moves towards that. Results may seem much less exciting than what you thought your life would be, but happiness is more important than razzle dazzle. I'm 30 now, but in most of my mid-20s I was struggling with anxiety and depression and substance abuse, and living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. By 27 I finally got out of the substance abuse cycle, started nursing school, and by 29 I think I got my shit together. The 20s are so hard, and it's important to have a good support system, and please don't do drugs, and save money. Lots of self-love, reminding myself that there is nothing that I need to have accomplished by now, and that the things I'm comparing myself to in my friends and peers are not actually the things that I strive towards. Remind myself that the latter half of my 20s and into my 30s will be so much more wise, responsible, financially stable and opportunistic. Started taking my mental health seriously, and am now in active treatment. Started finally using social media to connect with my friends, rather than deleting/criticizing Instagram when I become overwhelmed by how much of a highlight reel it was. Also unfollowing/muting people who do not serve me online. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Huge. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Doing in a child work. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. Moved cities. Luckily I was able to, but not everyone is. Actively repairing relationships I've been avoiding for years. Started giving myself permission to sleep longer. Got control of my substance misuse. And left 2 jobs I despised. Started setting boundaries with men to improve my self-worth. Started seeking the advice of women who have powerful, intersectional, well-rounded perspectives, started truly embracing my femininity and working on my internalized misogyny, became passionate about leftist politics, started exploring my upbringing to see where I have room to grow from what my family taught me growing up, started actually setting financial goals, credit score, savings ACC, made a plan to go back to school, learned how to start asking for help and advice when my ego normally world got in the way. When I get overwhelmed by how daunting life is and how exhausting it is to feel so lost, I remember how many cities I can go, be completely anonymous in. So many oceans to stick your feet in. So many beautiful faces to see all over the world. This gives me perspective and makes me want to continue pushing through this tough world in pulling myself out of a 3-year rut. And it's not easy at all, nor is it linear. It's a lot of discomfort and doing things that might make you feel mean or boring. But it's true acts of self-love. It is incredibly humbling. Connect with people and learn their stories. Eat colorful food and start asking about other people's lives instead of focusing so much on introspection. Not suggesting you do, but I'm constantly stuck in my own head. Here for you! Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. I'm 42 and I promise everything gets better. You will gain clarity. Think about what you want. Remove things from your life that bring you unhappiness. I'm still in that place RN. About to turn 22 with 0 achievements. I'm 21 and somewhat still feeling the same way, but I would recommend reading The Defining Decade. It was super helpful in getting a sense of direction. I made lists. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. It really worked. I was really lost and I traveled around alone for most of my 20s. When I was 28 I started diving deep into myself trying to understand which path to take. I wrote down qualities I have that contribute to the world in a positive way and kept writing. It has worked out. I'm now a baker and I really love it. I have gotten therapy and curbed a lot of compulsions I had and have a better general life direction. It's more comforting. You get back on track by focusing on what you're learning, noting your growth, internalizing it, and finding the next growth opportunity. When I was in my mid-20s, I took a plunge and decided to finally invest in myself, my friend, who was also in her mid-20s at the time, and I decided that we could do more than our 9-5s, and we could do more than just eat, live, drink, and party. She and I both buckled down and decided to go back to school. I decided to apply for law school and she applied for PA school. We both got in, graduated, got employed, found our forever partners, and are both doing really well. What I wish someone told me is that your 20s is the most formative years of your adult life. You are supposed to try again, again, and repeat. The default, with few exceptions, is that you won't know what you're doing with your life and you might not know what you want in a partner, in a career, in friendships, or even yourself. And that's a universal experience that just isn't talked about by many. I wish I knew back then that it's a period of growth and not necessarily stability. From my mid-20s to now, my friends were temporary. My job, which I thought was extremely important, was really not that great for me, and the partners I met were stepping stones for me to find my partner now. To get out of it, just take what you experience in stride and know that every experience is a stepping stone for an even better one. I decided to move to a new state. Finally I had a goal again, and purpose, and the anticipation of something new, and new people. I'm moving tomorrow actually. Maybe I'll hate it and be back in a year. Maybe I'll love it. Who knows? I left my waste of space boyfriend. I then realized my professional life was getting me down to a point where I was severely depressed. So I left my job too. I had trained 4 years to be a teacher, but made the decision to leave and got a random job that was completely out of the education sector. I gained some perspective on what I wanted in life and was able to start looking for jobs that were more fulfilling. 30 now and couldn't be happier. Good luck. I'm approaching my mid-30s and still feel a bit lost. I've done a ton of self-development since my 20s. Perhaps too much that I spent all my focus on mentally developing so I still struggle with any professional goals. Take a deep breath. Your 20s are kind of about figuring out who you are, separate from your parents and or upbringing, and becoming a more mature adult as the years go by. It doesn't happen right away, for sure, and it's slower for some people than others. If you're a reader, I recommend some books. Problem Solving 101, Ken Watanabe, The Last Lecture, Randy Pausch, Designing Your Life, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. The first is almost a kid's book, but an easy read and practical. The second is inspirational and shows how one person achieved some pretty unusual goals in a relatively short life. The third is a step-by-step plan for how to move forward and make a life you want to live. So, I'm 25 and I do feel really lost. But here is what helps me. Remember that it's really normal to be lost. Validate that feeling. The general economic and pandemic context doesn't help. Close bracket. Make time for activities you really enjoy. Make time to be present. Practice mindfulness and meditation, if you'd like to try. Focus on finding what you value most. For example, prioritizing your health. What role you want to have with your friends. I like the VIA character strength test that helps you value your qualities. I'm sure there's so much that can be said, but these are some lifelong skills I'm happy to practice in such a confusing time. And hopefully it helps you get some direction. Remember that your life only has to make sense to you, and you invent your path. Edit to at, therapy has helped me so much. My therapist does cognitive behavioral therapy, so useful to challenge some unhelpful thoughts. But I've also really been looking into acceptance and commitment therapy that really helps to start a momentum. Think of your values and act in accordance to those values. You can find tons of information on those online if you're interested, and you can also buy workbooks. Also, maybe if you want to elaborate a little more on this feeling of being lost, we might be able to offer more precise advice too. I felt really stuck where I was, with the pandemic raging, living in a small apartment with a roommate, doing the same damn thing every day. I decided to just make a leap of faith. I started looking for a new job in a new state without thinking much. Now I'm at my new job in a new state and am much happier. I needed something different. I grew up in a very conservative state with not much culture. It was like living in a bubble. I felt like I pushed a reset button when I left. I know it's a privilege to just be able to find a new job during these trying times, but it was a solution for me. The challenge now is finding new friends and a place to fit in, but now that gives me another thing to strive for. At 26 to 30, dumped my boyfriend, moved to a city with my best friend. Therapy, a lot of therapy tbh. New job, twice before I found the right fit. Close bracket. 33 now. The parts of life I can influence are exactly what I'd hoped them to be. I moved across the country, spent a few years doing what I wanted to do, then got homesick and moved home. I learned a lot about myself, what I wanted, and what I didn't. I'm grateful for my experience, and I'm very pleased with my life how it is now. I actually ended up moving back across the country again, as I got homesick for my second home. I'm here for good this time, but still go back to visit family in my home state periodically. I don't feel like I got back on track. What does that even mean? I just got much better at enduring and dealing with the feeling of being lost with my life. Some things that helped me do that in 3 to 4 years. 1. Stopped caring about what others consider successful or even normal. 2. Stopped looking for happiness. 3. Being in a relationship where I could trust the other half and move to a new place for some time. 4. Had a hobby that I was really passionate about that didn't feel like exercise because it was fun but was still good for my physical and mental health. That made me forget everything bad when I did it. 5. Graduated finally and got a first job through contacts. I worked with a life coach. Fundamentally, we identified my core values and beliefs initially, which I really wasn't clear on. For the first time, I had a clear set of words, phrases, whatever, to describe who I was and what I stood for. From there we built on it and did things like addressing things in my life that were holding me back or that were unresolved. There was a lot of meditation, a lot of writing involved, but I got back on track with a clear direction on where I was headed. Life coaches may not be for everyone, but it gave me the ability to structure my chaotic thinking, allowed me to identify my purpose whilst also working through some deep-rooted issues that were holding me back and affecting my life. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.